profile of my identity. I feel like an architect, like M.O.T.E.P. Son had the son himself, the God devil with the art of spit dark, with a slit heart. You can feel it in your bone marrow before the shit starts. Standing in the cold with a scroll that was written in gold. Behold the old glimpse that was never untold. Infinite like the 8-7 dwelling in your melon, no felon. Though the unrighteous say that I'm rebellious. I'm primal, my rhymes so it's tight up. My work idols, my style of all the gems going down in the spiral. You stuck in your boat, my intelligence past my proof. God is the truth. Every time I step in the booth, you step on the stoop. Got scoop to swoop to my loop. Do the knowledge, wax and seeds get laid like flu. And wish the sun of the star, a gift from the gods. Who will flying through the sky with golden wings. Submerged into the light, united by the golden king. With the steps, melanin, cultivating change till we all experience. Finally becoming one with the righteous sun. So long, souls are raw, magnificent glow. With unconditional love, scattered rays today from the heavens above. So below, the soul, strapped in the lowest steps to fell. Incarnated into 76 trillion cells. To break free, we must be refined, masculine and feminine bodies combined. The devil's all of confusion, 183,000 religions. Denomination that's close to the ism. Which is written in the Bible that you be spoken parables. The scriptures the gospels are just historical. Many passages for it to be taken literal. Most of it is allegorical based on esoteric principles. Baptist versus Methodist, Pentecostal holiness versus Jehovah's Witness, Mormon versus Seventh-day Adventists, Skeptics, atheists, and agnostics, evolving constant tactics of the reptilians, or dimensional aliens. So beware the draconian Satanists. So they aim to imprison those who beings through ignorance. So we crush the head of Leviathan. Battle mind control through the suggestions, brainwashing and indoctrination, using religion, politics, education, economics, house labor, entertainment and war, so sex and war. In this chessboard game, for like you've all been pawns. Public for streams controlled by demonic spawn. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. You can't run with the devil and walk with God. We'll get started in a moment. Peace to everyone. Your host, Dr. Alim El-Bey. Once again, you're on First World Radio. We are back. We are back. All right, we're going to be getting into today's topic, sacred geometry and the human anatomy. That's sacred geometry and the human anatomy. So, you know how we do. We got to give you that presentation to go along with the talk so that you can go back and research yourself. Because that's what all this is about. You researching the sciences of life. All right, you have to go back and research this. No one can do it for you. All right. In other words, you can lead a horse so-called to water, but you can't make them drink. That's what's going on. All right. So I can't force you to drink. All right. That's for sure. So, but we can lead you to the water. In other words, lead you to your order, to yourself. Of course, that's what we always do. All right. So we're going to get popping right quick. Make sure you all right. It's coming up, y'all. All right, there you go. All right. So let's start out with the sciences here.
All right, so we know that hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. It can replace most types of fuel, even for the human body. It burns clean. And when hydrogen is burnt, water forms and energy is released. Of course, that's how we got hydrogen plus oxygen forms water and releases energy. Right? You are 75% water. So the backing force of oxygen is hydrogen. All right, the most abundant element in the universe, the first element in which that all atoms come from. So it's the first atom. You get it? The first atom, just like in your Bible, the first atom. The size and weight of an atom of hydrogen with a velocity of about 100,000 miles per second and can penetrate through the thickest block of steel. An atom is made up of two or more corpuscles surrounded by positive electricity. This is prana in its elementary or elemental form. All right, that's what it is. It's prana. All right, now that's very important. Now that we have identified that prana and hydrogen are synonymous, hydrogen is the fundamental antioxidant. As the smallest element, it can reach into every organ in every cell. That's mean all 76 trillion of your cells. Hydrogen is the source of fuel with no toxic byproducts. Hydrogen-rich water neutralizes toxins and washes them away. Hydrogen cleanses the energetic body too. Cleanses the energetic body. Now, Albert Goroji, the Nobel-winning biochemist, said that hydrogen, rather than oxygen, was the fuel of life. So see, we think oxygen is the fuel of life when really it's hydrogen. All right, so hydrogen would be equivalent to God because we know that Jesus' name in Greek comes to the number or numeral 888, which would be symbolic to 8 protons, 8 neutrons, 8 electrons. Oxygen is the 8th element on the periodical chart. So when Jesus says in the Bible that there's one who is greater than I, or when you see me, you see the Father, because oxygen and hydrogen goes very well together, in which that we know forms water. And energy is released. This is the code to the Bible. Everyone knows we need oxygen to live, but oxygen's counterpart, hydrogen, is the real fuel, prana. Oxygen burns hydrogen, releasing the energy in the form of ATP that runs our bodies. Water supplies both the fuel, hydrogen, and the fire, oxygen. It is hydrogen that is often the limiting factor. The word hydrogen comes from the Greek, meaning water former. Water is formed when hydrogen is burnt by oxygen. It is created every day in our bodies as we burn hydrogen to create ATP. Hydrogen and oxygen participates in a continuous cycle that generates both water and energy. Hydrogen may also supply energy for our bodies outside the normal ATP pathway. Read abstract. Later research demonstrates that inhaled hydrogen gas, 4%, has antioxidant properties that could protect the brain against strokes. All right. Water is the universal solvent. One, it can exist as a solid, liquid, or gas. Water, oxygen plus hydrogen equals life. Interestingly, water, which is essential to life, is formed by the combination of oxygen, a powerful oxidizer and essential for life, and hydrogen, a powerful reducer and essential to life. It tends to make sense that molecule hydrogen has therapeutic potential. All right. The U.S. military documents indicate hydrogen is an effective means of protection and repair against radiation injury. Hydrogen for radiation, U.S. military doc, page 285. A 2012 literature has that it say hundreds of studies has now established the significance of a hydrogen environment. Benefits includes antioxidant and anti-inflammation or anti-inflammatory effects. All right. Stimulation of energy metabolism, improves metabolism, protects against brain trauma and cognitive disorders, and of many age-related symptoms, cause you getting rich prana, the element prana, hydrogen, you getting it. A 2013 article summarizes that medical potential of hydrogen, stress, poor diet, age, and pollution depletes the pools of hydrogen in our bodies. In our modern society, most people are hydrogen depleted. Ooh, that's deep. That's deep. When we think of water, but when the body calls for water, it is hydration it wants. The absence of hydrogen is the underlying cause of dehydration, which has been linked to many maladies. All the symptoms of disease and aging are in one way or another occupied by slow dehydration. By increasing the amount of hydrogen we get every day, and by replenishing the hydrogen pool in our organs, we can relieve many symptoms and improve our levels of energy. Sun, air, food, and water are all sources of hydrogen. And this makes sense on the reason why they have polluted the air, the food, and the water. The chemtrails in the air, the GMO in the food, and the fluoride in the water. The air in particular would be that of bacterial spores, as well as also what we refer to as bacterial spores, as well as also what we refer to as aluminum, barium, strontium. You see, they can't do nothing with the sun, but with them affecting the air, they can put up aluminum, which is part of the chemtrails, in which that blocks out the sun. Hence, once again, reducing the hydrogen prana effect upon the planet. Some sources have greater amounts of hydrogen than others. The hydrogen in some sources is more available than others. Sunlight is the primary source of hydrogen, prana, called photosynthesis. So we as melanated people, in order to get our abundance of hydrogen, every source of it is by getting out into the sun for at least an hour to 3 hours a day as melanated people. The European albion do 15 to 20 minutes. However, the hydrogen is tied up in complex molecules. It also contains hydrogen, which is immediately absorbed into our cells and tissues, the respiratory tract. But the atmosphere is small, less than 1%. One way to enhance the air with hydrogen is to use an air ionizer. Get you an air ionizer, or to place a warm salt lamp in your living environment. Both produce negative ions and small amounts of hydrogen. And ionized air is plentiful in the presence of moving water, especially waterfalls. And at the ocean, where salt water continuously releases ions into the air, on the other hand, food, this is why they poisoning the waters. To decrease the release of ions in the air, of the negative ions into the air, in which that helps with the photosynthesis, production of prana. On the other hand, food is the secondary source of hydrogen that must be metabolized, broken down to release the hydrogen. So yes, we speak about the vitamins and minerals and nutrients, but really what you want to be released is the hydrogen. All right, the hydrogen. Hydro in your genes means water forming creation. A plasmic or plasma river of hydrogen and helium, as well as electromagnetic radiation, magnetic fields, neutrinos, dust, and cosmic rays. What we refer to as the heavens, this is also what we refer to as prana. All right? And prana correlates to what we refer to as fire, water, earth, and air. In fact, the word hydro, all right, is water, and gen is fire. So hydrogen is a combination of water and fire. Oxygen is a combination of air and fire. Oxy means air, gen, fire. All right. So we have fire, water, and air. All right. In which that you symbolize the earth element, as we would say 99.9999% of your atomic structure is empty space. So really the 0.1% appears to be solid or earth. All right. And so this is how to you. And as you see, each element forms a geometrical shape. All right. We're talking about a triangle. We're talking about a cube. You know, we're talking about a hexagonal. We're talking about various different shapes here in which that the elements forms. Now, this is the language in which God has written the universe. And Galileo said that. And it's true because we know just simply by cutting, you get various angles, shapes, etc. Now, what we know is that this is where the sacred geometry comes in at. But we know that we have the divine, because the all is mind and everything in the universe is mental. The thoughts of God and the egg sphere of creation. This is where we get that the aura around your physical body is shaped in an egg, a fear. Your prostate gland, this is the egg, or this is for creation purposes, or this symbolizes that shape. Now, if you go and study what is called the offices, or what is called also within astronomy, will be the constellation of Ficus, means the serpent wrestler, but it also shows you that same symbol as a certain egg. That egg is the egg of creation, or fear, a sphere of creation. So when we break down that the all is mind, it comes to, in Pythagorean numerology, it comes to 45. Then as you do as above, so below, it comes to And as below, so above comes the 45. The numbers together, all right, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it comes to 45. All right. And of course, 4 and 5 is the number 9, which symbolizes completion. All right. And so this also gives us the shape, what is called the golden mean ratio. All right. So climatic. What is that? We're talking about sound. All right. In the structure of space itself. No point is more central than this, that empty space is not empty. It is actually the seat of the most. This is John Archibald Wheeler. And he says only 1% of what we know is matter. As we were just talking about, actually, it's less than 1% of what we know is matter. So it appears to be solid. Is that 1%? The rest of the 99 so-called percent is what we call, they refer to it as dark matter, black energy. All right, we know the third phenomenon would be called the triple stage darkness, hence the formation of the sacred geometry. Because as thought slows down from 24 billion miles per second at 186,000 miles per second, down at 1,120 feet per second, we're looking at the formation of geometrical shapes, sacred geometry, the circle, the vesica Pisces, triangle, the pentagon, pentagram, hexagon, the 7 days of creation, the seed of life, the tree of life, the egg of life, the flower of life, also correlates to the Metatron cube. Right? At fruit, as we was talking about just a few minutes ago, you cut it in half, you will see these same geometrical or sacred geometrical shapes. That's no coincidence. All right? Even the sounds that we make. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Them's geometrical shapes. Do equals 288 hertz, red sphere. Ray equals 324 hertz, orange. What is called the icosahedron. You have me, which is 360 hertz, which is yellow, the color yellow. Now notice that these are going in the color or what we call Roy G. Biv. Right? Yellow, you had the octahedron. The Fa equals 384 hertz, green star tetrahedron. So equals 432 hertz, blue cube. La equals 480 hertz. The Do decahedron. And you have T, which is 540 hertz, violet, which takes you back to hedron. And as you go into the next level, right? Because we did 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Goes back into Do again, which is now on another octave, which is now at 576 hertz, a red sphere or sphere. So we know that correlate off of phi and pi. Phi, which is the golden mean ratio, will equals 1.618. All right. The fingers are in golden ratio proportion. The C shape, and even the universe itself, in particular galaxy that we're in, the way that it spirals, your hair, your ears, your fingerprint, head of lettuce, cabbage. Walter Russell said, all things are involved in all things. All motion is curved and all curvature is spiral. All right. Frequencies have a direct effect on every organism. A equals 432 hertz is logic, pure and rich. And A equals 440 hertz, enhanced materialism, hostility, and disconnect from nature. This is why they've changed the sound vibration. And this is how you can see it in water. Water sound image 432 hertz is the natural. However, they have upped the sound frequency to 440 hertz, which deals now with enhanced materialism, hostility, and disconnected humans from nature. So you has Hesrat Khan, who stated that he who knows the secret of sound knows the mystery of the whole universe. Well, what we do know is that 3, 9, 6, or 3, 6, and 9 correlates to the sound that we just talked about, or frequency, or hertz, because we showed you that as above, so below, as within, so without, or also what is known as all is mind, everything is mental, everything is energy. How it came to the numeral 45, hence the number 9. Well, we know that another individual, great individual by the name of Nikola Tesla, he said if you knew the secret behind the numerals 3, 6, and 9, you would know the whole universe. So this is no coincidence. Find that the body is held together by sound. The presence of disease indicates that some sound has gone out of tune. This is what Deepak Chopra have stated, right? So much about a person's health can be determined by the frequency of the person's body. Dr. Robert O. Becker. Now, what we find is that the average body organ frequencies is that the thyroid and parathyroid glands operates between 62 and 68 megahertz. Thymus gland between 65 to 68 megahertz. The heart between 67 to 70 megahertz. Lungs 58, 65 megahertz. Liver to 55 to 60 megahertz. Stomach to 58 to 65 megahertz. Pancreas between 60 to 80 megahertz. Descending colon 58 to 63 megahertz. And ascending colon 50 to 60 megahertz. All right, the eyeballs structures 20 to 90 hertz. The head 20 to 30 hertz. The shoulder girdle 4 to 5 hertz. The chest wall 5 to 10 hertz. The arm 5 to 10 hertz. The hands 30 to 50 hertz. The lower arm 16 to 30 hertz. All right. Did you know that the high quality essential oils can also help your vibration at a higher frequency? In a healthy body, or a healthy human body, unhealthy human body, a dying human body. Now, when you look at the healthy human body, it oscillates between 62 to 78 megahertz. An unhealthy human body at 59 megahertz and below. a dying human body at 20 to 25 and below megahertz. Now there's essential oils that oscillates at 52 megahertz through 320 megahertz. Rose oil is the highest. Next is the helichrysum, lavender, frankincense, myrrh, ravent, zara, tansy, blue, caramel, juniper, melissa, sandalwood, angelica, and peppermint. And of course, spearmint would be close behind the peppermint. So the frequency of people and things, the human brain oscillates between 72 to 90 megahertz. The human body, 62 to 68 megahertz. Cold symptoms, 58 megahertz. Flu symptoms, 57 megahertz. Candida, 55 megahertz. Epstein-Barr, 52 megahertz. Cancer, 42 megahertz. Onset of death, 25 megahertz. Processed canned food, 0 megahertz. Fresh produce, up to megahertz. Dry herbs, 12 to 22 megahertz. Fresh herbs, 20 to 27 megahertz. And essential 2 to 320 megahertz. All right, so the quickest way, obviously, to heal the human body is through essential oils, then dried herbs, and then fresh produce. All right, so when we look at these, we have to go even further. All right, you can even check this information out. All right, that disease begins at 58 megahertz. All right, junk food, negative 7 megahertz. Fresh fruit, 75 megahertz. Raw vegetables, 90 megahertz. Raw almonds, 40 megahertz. Okay. Negative thoughts lowered by 12 megahertz within 3 seconds. Positive thoughts raised within 12 seconds. Prayer raised 15 megahertz. Cell phone transmit at 2,000 megahertz to 2 GHz and lowers our megahertz every time we use them. All right, so it is your body frequency, negative or positive, electrical beings with energy frequencies living in a world filled with energies. Every person, element, cell, thought, chakra, plant, food, essential oil, animal, emotion, and action energies measured in pure therapeutic, young living, essential oils contain an altered energy of the plants given them by our creator and use them, or these will heal emotionally and physically. Right? You raise our energy frequencies, align energies, and restore natural energetic well-being, reduce stress and calm nervous system, strengthen the immune system, remove blockages and balances energies, enhance perceptions, and brings balance to body systems. Right? So this is what the essential oils can do. All right. Said disease begins at 58 hertz frequency. Flu starts at 57, like we said earlier, right? So what is that you can actually drop just a few drops of essential oils, all right, at particular body areas. For example, if you, we know that one outburst of anger, 1 minute of your outburst will shut down your whole immune system for 6 hours, and that anger is stored in the liver. So in order to eliminate the anger in the liver, you can actually take helichrysum and massage on the right side of your body at the liver area. And this will help eliminate the anger there. All right. You can inhale rosemary essential oil, and it will improve your memory 70%. And actually begin to start killing cancer cells, in particular breast cancer. Okay. And that goes as high as 90%. So these are essentially important, right? Because we know that the ELFs, the EMFs, the RF, the microwave radiation affects the body natural electric field. And when the body's electric field is exposed to external 60 hertz, it draws the energy level down. Why? Because that normally the body, a healthy body, is 78 megahertz, 62 to 68 megahertz during the day. So when we get energies, which is 60 hertz, it begins to start bringing the body down and below. Now notice that all the electrical equipment oscillates at 50 to 60 hertz. That's no coincidence. All right, this is the reason why we keep finding this over and over again, this correlation. All right, so we know that we talked about Roy G. Biv, which is the visible light spectrum, which is in between radio, microwave, infrared, ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma. Visible spectrum symbolizes the third dimension, which is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. We're talking about that wavelength. All right. Now, according to Dr. Jewel Puckerman, her A through Z Minerals and Vitamins book, she spoke specifically about the fact that we have the capabilities as melanated beings to tap and see into all of these 7 areas: radio, microwave, infrared, visible spectrum, ultraviolet light, X-rays, gamma rays. You can see in all of these particular areas. So not just the visible spectrum. Who is it? That's Queen Dad, yeah. Mm-hmm. Put the one at the bottom. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Y'all put it back towards you. Y'all. Yeah, so the colors. So the colors that we're talking about is, for red, is 685 to 605, as you see here, wavelength in nanometers. Orange is 605 to 585 in nanometers. Yellow is 585, 560 in nanometers in wavelength. Green is 560 to to 475 nanometers in wavelength. Blue is 475 to 455 nanometers in wavelength. Indigo is 455, 440 nanometers in wavelength. And violet is 440 to 405 nanometers wavelength. And then, of course, you have to add in the frequency, the terahertz. The red is 435 to 495, which is the lowest or slowest. Orange is 495 to 515. Yellow is 515 to 535. Green, which is the middle, is 535 to 630. Blue is 630 to 660. Indigo is 660 to 680. And violet, which is the highest or fastest, is 680 to 740. So right here, this is what we're talking about. As you see, the colors, the energy, the frequencies, the wavelength, all of this correlates, all right, to what we call the visible spectrum. However, as stated, the melanated beings, according to Dr. Jewel Pookrum in her book, A to Z Vitamins, Minerals, she speaks of the fact of the various fields, all right, that we can tap into, as well as which that others cannot tap. She basically down to spectrum, all right. This, of course, is those who refer to as partial to pineal glands, all right, which Dr. Richard is about 60 to 80%. The other 40 to 20% do have capabilities in order to see outside that range of the visible spectrum, all right? Not within the totality, however, as the melanated beings. You're talking about the heavily melanated beings. The Moors, so-called blacks, Africans, have those capabilities of seeing through all 7 of those frequencies in which that we bands or wavelengths in which that we just made mention of. All right. Now we know that the quote unquote those colors, the visible spectrum correlates to the endocrine gland system. All right. The pineal gland is symbolic to what we refer to as the violet, the pituitary gland to the indigo, the thyroid gland to blue, thymus gland to green, all right? The pancreas, the adrenal glands to what we refer to as yellow, all right? Along with the pancreas, all right? Of course, you have the uterus, which would be more so that of the orange, and of course, the vaginal canal or the clitoris, that would be to the red, as well as the prostate would be orange, and of course, the testes would be the red. All right, so these are the correlations to the major 7 endocrine glands in the body, male and female, in which that correlates to the chakra points. All right, which of course, that is your internal rainbow. All right, that is your internal rainbow. So when you read in the Bible, Old Testament, that Noah was given a covenant between him and God, and it was a rainbow, that is symbolic to what we're talking about, is Roy G. Biv within you. All right, then of course, when you go to even further in the Old Testament, and it speaks about Joseph had a multi-layered coat, all right, which was like a rainbow coat that was symbolic once again to the emitting of the chakras into the auric field, which that it can change the color of your auric field, which normally is about, it's in an egg shape, as I made mention of earlier, and it expands about 3 feet outside of you. So if you stretch your arms straight out in front of you, and then actually did it in a circle, then that would be about the equivalent of the average person's auric field. However, there's certain breath techniques in which that can actually expand that even further, which I've spoke about before, which is called pranic breathing. You have 7-1-7-1, which is you breathe in for 7 seconds, hold it for 1 second, breathe out for 7 seconds, hold it for 1 second, or 6-3-6-3, you hold it for 3 seconds, breathe out for 6 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, or empty retention, where you just simply breathe in, no count, and you hold it for 1 second. If you did either one of those three 100 times, or field for more than 3 feet to now more than 15 feet outside of you. All right. So you have mouth 5 times. All right. Stronger magnetically. All right. Electromagnetically, then. All right. So we just went over the human body as far as the frequencies, the colors. All right. Now you also have to go into the science of the sounds, because the sound shapes. It is the vowels in which that form what we now refer to as your endocrine gland system. The 7 major endocrine glands of the 7 vowels. Right? For the pineal gland, it would be the I. Pituitary gland, it would be the E. For the thyroid gland, it would be the A. For the thymus gland, it would be the AH. For the solar plexus, it would be HAH. For the navel, it would be O. For the genitals, it would be U. So these particular vowels, and also at the back of the head, would be Y, because you know A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. So, which is medulla oblongata, would be activated. So these are the 7 major endocrine glands in the body, and these particular tones are the sounds in which that form them into existence. Because remember, sound forms geometrical shapes. We know this as a fact, because you can actually take a sand and put on a plate and play music, and the sand will actually form into a particular shape based on the beat, the patterns, the modes, the schemes of the music. Okay. Another good example of that is Dr. Masaru Emoto's, who passed within the last 2 years. He stated and showed the facts of how these quote unquote, all right, let's say what happened. He wrote on these jars, put water in a jar, wrote positive things on this jar with the water, froze the water, took it out the freezer, looked at it under the microscope, and the molecules were in a 6-pointed star configuration with things in which that was positive. However, things that was negative, it would look discombobulated, had no real shape. There would be no molecule shape. So this shows what happened is that they found that water has 440,000 channels of memory. This is what they found out. Okay. So you talk about these 6-pointed star configurations and etc. Well, we also have to talk about the 5-pointed star which is dimensions of the pentagram and pentagon, with its relationship to phi. The golden ratio. All right. Now, this was shown to us by Leonardo da Vinci's, all right, of the man who stretches out his arms and legs are parallel, in which he's standing at 108 degrees. And every cell in our bodies is a platonic, solid crystal form. Every protein in our bodies is pent-shaped. In other words, 5-pointed star shaped. And therefore, based on phi proportions. In fact, the more we zoom in and construct the pinnacle within the pinnacle, a process that can go on forever, the more the phi ratio is evident. This means that our human constitution is based on self-similarities and expressions of fractality, evidence in the spirit molecule that knows only phi and has no boundaries. The currently immense fascination with 108. Now, we know that in Hinduism, the Vedic, they use the numeral 108 as far as even with the prayer beads. They use this 108 beads. And how is a measure of the external angles of the pinnacle of 108 degrees, and how it permeates our entire physical matrix. So we're talking about the 6-pointed star and the 5-pointed star. Man symbolizes the manifestation of that 6-pointed star configuration. God's body, you are Allah, manifested in the flesh. All law, universal law, arm, leg, arm, head. Or within Islam or Arabic, we would say Allahi. Arm, leg, arm, head, eye. And the eye symbolizes the phallus, with the dot symbolizes the sperm in which that issues forth from the phallus. So man is Allahi, woman is Allahu, Allahu, the uterus or the womb, where life is formed. Hence in Masonry, we say Ma, mother, son, Re, the study of. So Re means the study of. So it's the study of the mother and son principle. Hence I, self, Lord, and Master. To study earth and yourself, you must know Ma, mother, subconscious mind, and son, S-U-N, conscious mind. And Masonry, the study of Islam, of the science, not Islam, the creed per se. All right? About the study of Islam, the science, which is Islamism, Sufism, not necessarily Arab traditions, customs, and their dehumanizing, patronizing, male chauvinistic creed. That is not our Islam. Our Islam deals with science, as we dropped in here tonight. This is more science that we're talking about. 108 is also what makes the sun and moon the same size, although they are vastly different in distance and size. If you were to place Jupiter in our near orbit and make it look the same size as the sun and moon in our sky, it would have to be used 108 ratio of size distance to do so. As we said earlier, India rosary, Mala, has 108 beads for mantra counting. It also has 12 constellations times 9 planets, which is 108. Okay, so once again, this 108 correlates. All right, and this is like what we was talking about earlier, Dr. Masaru Emoto. As you see here, I hate you. And as you see here on the left, and as you see here on the right, I love you. This is after 27 days, as you see. Heavy metal music looks discombobulated. You make me sick, or I will kill you. Discombobulated. Adolf Hitler, just the resonance of his name makes it discombobulated. Mozart Symphony, however, Imagine by John Lennon, Love, just the feeling of love. All right. Peace. Thank you. All these form a six-pointed star configuration. Fujiwara, before prayer, discombobulated. After prayer, six-pointed star configuration. So prayer changes things. Decrees, positive words, positive messages, sentences, declarations, commands. All these things make changes, can change. Woman records unique voice of sunflower. It sounds like music from other dimension. Aina Najia, right? And this just came out last week, September 21st, 2018. And this is what it says basically, that it might be hard to believe, but plants not only respond to sound, but they also produce their own sound. While it is easy to assume that plants like trees and flowers are the stoic living declarations in your garden, it turns out that they pretty much communicate with each other through their own voice. While they may not be able to produce sound like humans or animals, plants use vibration and sound around them to communicate and to inform them about any imminent danger from nearby. In an impressive video, a woman shows how she recorded the sound of sunflowers that she had been growing in her backyard, and it sounds totally out of this world. With a microphone and her mobile phone, the woman recorded a vibration sound from the sunflowers, which sound like a high-pitched radio. All right. Impressed by the recording, she later shared the video on her Facebook, and the video immediately became viral with hundreds of thousands of views so far. Apparently, this has been confirmed by a study done by the University of Western Australia, in which researchers discovered click sounds coming from the root of corn saplings. All right, so everything, even though you might not hear it, all right, even though you might not hear it yourself, there's sounds that are being made. The plants is, that article that we just shared with you shows that, proves that, right? I remember watching a video some years ago on YouTube in which that showed that the sun also makes sound. And it sounds like a humming noise, that the sound coming from the sun. So that means that the hydrogen that we spoke about earlier, because guess what? The most abundant element coming from the sun is hydrogen, the first element, prana. It makes the sound, om. Sound like a generator. Oh, well, the sun is the generator, operator, and destroyer, the God, the God, in this particular solar system, because without it, there would be no life. All right, even though we know that it's just an aspect, and that it has itself a said beginning and ending, Of course, we can't say per se that you've seen that. You can't see that in your lifetime, of course. The ending aspect or the beginning aspect in that sense. You just see the continuation every day of the sun rising. And notice, as you see here on this Egyptian still, Cymatics, Temerian still, you see Ra, which is symbolized here to the left, his rays going into the nose, in particular, sparking the pineal gland at the top of the head of the woman, as you see. That is symbolic. And she has her hands up in the ka position, which symbolizes the spirit or breath. All right, this is what you have here. You see Ra with the wasp, the flare, the Ankh, the source of life. So Ra, the sun, is the source of life. And you must breathe in order to receive that hydrogen that we spoke about earlier. Get the book Language of the Gods by B.R. Taylor or Tyler. This book sets out to challenge the way we see the world, our adopted belief systems, and coronates within world history. It exposes how the potential of a united humanity has been suppressed by various forms of control over thousands of years. Elites which have used division in both and spiritual realms. The book is a journey of discovery into our true connections to the universe and the relationship between the microcosm and the microcosm. So the macrocosm and the microcosm, the universe and your universe, you and I verse. The reader will come away with a fresh, empowering view on how our planetary cycles and energies, along with human consciousness, are the drivers behind geopolitical events and that ever-changing fortune of time. We are what we think, or that we are arise within our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. This is what Buddha says. So get the book Language of the Gods. Right? Now, we talked about the hair earlier. We showed you earlier about sound and phi. All right. As you see here, the golden mean ratio, the golden ratio is in the hair. So we wanted to talk about the hair cycle also, right? We wanted to talk about that. And as we know that there's hair type, you have what is called so-called 6 ether, straight, wavy, 7 ether, curly, 8 ether, and coil, which is 9 ether. All right. Now, some of people don't fully understand what Dr. York was talking about, so I'm going to explain it simply as all right. But the follicles of woolly or 9 ether hair is flat and grows out of form a tight curl. The hair is the key. It's simple and clear, as in the case of a baby. Babies are born with straight or curly hair, and as they mature, their genes get stronger and their hair thickens. All right. 6 ether versus 9 ether, right? Ether group means burning gas. 6 ether, 7 ether, 8 ether, 9 ether, as we just went over. You have the Europeans who are carbon based, right? Can absorb energy from the sun at a tremendous rate. By 7 years old, their pineal gland becomes calcified. 10 to 13 years old, they lose their thymus gland function. They They symbolize as the moon or lunatics in a sense, and they operate off a lunar calendar. Then you have um, carbon beings who are African descent, can absorb energy from the sun. They don't lose their thymus gland, or the thymus gland don't become atrophied and shrinks. They still have it, unless, of course, we know that through the diet, um, you know, that can't happen. You have the sun, which we utilize the solar calendar. All right, so sun equals greater light, which is 9 to the ninth power of 981. The children of the sun symbolizes the lesser light, which is 9 squared, 18. Of course, 8, 1. Opposite is 1, 8. So it's a flip. So we have the greater light and the lesser light. We're talking about the sun up in the sky and how you become the children of the sun, based by raising Kundalini energy up to the pineal gland and sparking that halo around your head, which is in the image of the sun also. And you have the etymology on Ethiopia and ether. Ethiopia is Greek. Oku relates to the vision, etain, the so-called black looking, Moorish looking. And then you have ether, which is Greek, which symbolizes surge or bird. Opt, which is ops, also eye, base. So you have Ethiops, which means burn, fury, looking, sunburn. And that's what they said, that we were sunburnt. This is what the Europeans used to think. Crowd or natural force, moving powerfully forward or outward. Aether or ether, upper air, bright. Latin ether or aether. English ether, permeates all space between particles of matter with vibrations that constitute light and electromagnetic radiation. All right, so we know that Ethiopians means the burnt faces. All right, so we're talking about the etymology of Ethiopia and how it ties back to ether. All right, now in First Language by Dr. Malachi York, he says this, that he, through his mass media, has tricked us and thoroughly convinced us that his doggish ape-like hair is good, beautiful, which appeals to our laziness, which also has us convinced that it is more manageable. And as you can see, they have hair like that of dogs or a goat. And then straight hair, goat, 6 ether. All right, that's what you see here. We are the only deity. No other race of people on the surface of the planet Earth has woolly hair like a sheep. It's not kinky, it's kingly. Right, so this is what he makes mention of: woolly haired sheep's 9 ether. All right. All right. So also he makes mention of within the Holy Tablet, creation, evolutionary, or secondary, and ghostational, or tertiary, creation. Excuse me. It says 15 primary creation was performed by 9 ether, whose science is Nuwapu. 16. 9 ether is the combination of all existing gases of nature, whereas anywhere we can be as powerful as all existing gases. Now, that correlates, as we said earlier, that the gases of nature also correlates to the vibrations in which that we spoke of, which correlates to those 7 areas from radio waves to gamma rays. That's the combination of what it's talking about here. So not just the visible spectrum, but all of it. Therefore, 9 ether is the most potent power in all the boundless universes. Hence, 9 ether is the original creator who grew all the universes. Now, we spoke about this before, that the mind of our ancestors are the ones that formed the universe into existence. We left one universe after we condensed it and our minds expand beyond those borders or boundaries and formed a whole nother universe into existence. So we know that the power of 9 ether, the sum total of numbers, there are no numbers actually higher than 9. 9 ether is a combination, a combo of all existing gas of nature, or, in that sense, as we said earlier, from 0 to 9 becomes up to 45, and 4 plus 5, of course, is the number 9. All right. Thus, the all is in all. Therefore, 9 ether is the most potent power in the universes. 9 to the ninth power of 9. All right. 9 is symbolic of heaven, creation, and birth. Also, the sun. 9 is the number which square roots is 3, a number which is symbolic of 3 dimensions. Now, remember, we spoke about 3, 6, and 9. All right. Nikola Tesla said that if you understand the numeral science behind 3, 6, and 9, then you will understand everything there is to know. So this is what we're doing, is trying to get everybody to understand everything that we need to know right here. Now, this also correlates to the fact of back in the days, you had the TVs, in which this was before the remote control. We're talking about the TVs in which they had rabbit ear antennas, as they called them, in which that just went simply straight up and out. All right, that symbolized 6 ether, and that gave you the ability in order to get the channels, channel 2 to channel 13, which is called very high frequency. However, if you want to go into ultra high frequency, you had to go to channel U, and that would have been channel 14 to channel 83. All right. And the antenna in which that you use for that was called the ohm antenna. All right. Ohm antenna, OHM or OM. All right. So what we find out is that we talk about third-dimensional apparent reality, but really we are fourth-dimensional beings being incarcerated, in a sense, by third-dimensional entities. All right. So we're supposed to be going into the fifth dimension, in which that would leave. And this is why you had the fifth dimensions with Marilyn McCool back in 1969. And the most popular song at that time was Here Come the Sun, or The Age of Aquarius. All right. It was called The Age of Aquarius. So we have to look at that too. And that was in 1969. And that was no coincidence. All right. So you have Hika, abode of mortal, Saya, abode of Elohim, and Hui, the abode of the Most High. 9 ether is placed in the follicle hair case of all woolly, nappy-headed people, and it produces the 9 symbol. The number 9 is the highest number in the universe, making 9 etheric beings infinity, or immortal beings, immortals. So we love to read about the 8 immortals of the Tao teachings, but you are the immortals, the Nagas. All right. This is what is coming to, and no, Dr. Malachi didn't come up with this information on his own. There's other books in which that already had this information in it. Okay. But he was able to composite the information and put it out, because he had a wider audience. And that was a good thing, so that we can get it. And like we were saying, is that the ohm antenna symbolizes the structure or the shape of the hair, as in the top of the number 9. All right. So by chanting the Om sound, as all good monks do, whether you are a Shaolin monk, a yogi monk, whether you are a Taoist monk, a Buddhist monk, or Tibetan monk, all the monks chant Om. So notice that they have, all right, notice that they have the hair structure all right, of the 6 or 7 ether. All right. So chanting the Om sound helps them tap into the higher frequencies of this universe, because what we find out is that this particular universe, the sound that produced it into existence according to the Vedic text, is the Om sound. So I don't think that is a, I don't think that is a, coincidence. That is something in which that we should be studying more of, because that whether you get the Bhagavad Gita, the Hispanishad, it's broken down in there about the Om sound, whether you pronounce it as O-M or A-U-M. All right. One would be masculine, one would be feminine, however you want to call it. All right. Get the magazine, Scientific American magazine. Is there an ether? Aid the layman who attempts to keep abreast of the changing concepts of moderate physics. So basically, they find that in physics, yes, there is ether. That's what the article goes into. All right. So we know that. And so, of course, your hair, just like the antennas that we talked about, the rabbit ear antennas, or rather it's the Om antennas, you have your antennas, which is your antennas to consciousness, which is in the shape of the 9 ether, as we spoke about. All right. No coincidence. And so we know when you have an afro, that symbolizes the same as that of you having that sun disk around your head. All right. That's in the image and after the likeness of it. Of course, you can have an afro, or, whatever the case is, but the main objective is to have that glow around your head, which is in the image and after the likeness of the sun itself. Hence, you become a child of the sun. Okay. That's what you become. You become the child of the sun, even though technically you already is that, but you have reached the fullest potential, as they would say, a child or the children of the sun, collectively or individually. All right. So as you see here, this sun disk, and notice that is in the dragon. Look at the front portion there as it reaches down towards the third eye level. So not only is it in the shape of a halo, in which that you often seen on the paintings of Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, but you also see that is in the dragon shape, which symbolizes the development of the golden dragon body. So this is just symbolic. Now, this is why you have the ancient Egyptians who have this snake coming up there at that area in the head. Okay, this is where you have that at. You have the serpent coming up at the third eye area in the tiaras or the crowns of the pharaohs or pharaohs. And this is all correlates now. So this is the real science going on here. All right. And the Dogons tells us that we sit down armed or downstream in the arm of the galaxy, of this Milky Way galaxy from Sirius. And that Sirius A and Sirius B has an elliptical pattern, which is nearly identical, if not identical, to our helix, our 2-strand helix, which is our DNA. And within our helix, we have the code in which that is called Adala Bra for Yahweh or Yahivahe, whether it's G, C, T, A, Wadanine, Cetosine, Thymine, and Adenine. But that CGTA becomes what we call YHW or VH, Yahweh Vahe, all right, which is known as a dollar broth, Jehovah, all right. God as you will, whether if you take it from the biblical or the Gnostics, it still is part of you, this physical body. And what we know is that the Dogon says that we come from the star constellation Sirius. And what they mean by that is that our DNA, all right, not only did we spiritually come from Sirius, all right, and matter of fact, Credo Mutua speaks about this. He says that in the Zulu Bone Oracle book, that Mars was the sixth planet that we came to. Before that, we was existed on 5 different other planets, and that this planet was the 7th planet. Okay, so eventually, or earlier on in our evolution, we was on a planet that was near Sirius A and Sirius B, Sirius C, Ziggy-Tolo, Polo-Tolo, and Emiya. All right, so this is shown in the book. The name of the book is Sirius Mysteries by Robert Temple. Another one is by Hope and Murray, and it was called Sirius Connection. And there's another one called The Pale Fox by some Frenchmen. All right. So check that out. Another good book to read. If DNA is Software, Who Wrote the Code? This is another good book, Tom Munsell. All right. It says, and even Graham Hancock said that the book is absolutely fascinating. All right, so check that book out. All right, geneticists have discovered that the same method of processing information, programs, and cell routings or cell roots instruct our bodies as DNA and in our brains as neural network. They now edit DNA as software program by sequencing or decoding its meaning and intent. All right. But if DNA is software, who wrote the code? Well, we gave you the code, and embedded inside the code is the God in which that you worship. Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever name that you want to refer to it as. For a society addicted to computers, this is a very profound question. What's going on? From our experience with computers, we know that all software requires is intentionally intelligent to create. If you deeply understand what it means for life to operate with the precision. Can you conclude this for tomorrow? All right. So get this book and check it out. All right. Just check it out. All right. So continue weeks, months, and years. Was our most cherished goal of life, health, wealth, knowledge of ourselves, and we wish to be involved is bringing increasing rewards. We have so much abundance and success that we're able to move, help those who are sincere along the way. And we're moving closer toward the oneness of God and God is in the full release of our higher inner selves. Ashe.